Hi, friends. I have a story to tell you today. It's full of surprises and emotions. I hope you enjoy it and stay with me until the end. Ready? Let's get started. At a hospital room filled with morning sunlight, Jennifer Wilson was checking a patient's vital signs. She worked as a nurse at Northwest Regional Hospital and was well liked for her caring and hard work. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her husband, Robert. Don't forget dinner at Mom's tonight. It's the final meeting for Vanessa's wedding. Jennifer let out a sigh. Since marrying Robert 5 years ago, she hadn't gotten along well with his mother, Carol. Carol came from a wealthy family in the suburbs of Boston and had never approved of her son marrying someone from a middle-class background. After COVID, Jennifer's job got even harder, but Carol and Robert's sister, Vanessa, didn't seem to respect her. They often looked down on her, calling her job just a nurse. Also, the fact that Jennifer didn't have children made Carol unhappy. She often reminded Jennifer about her duty to continue the family line. That evening, Jennifer and Robert arrived at Carol's large house in Bridgewater. Vanessa's fancy car was already parked outside. Inside, Carol and Vanessa were sitting on the couch, deep in conversation. "You're finally here," Carol said coolly. "Where's Robert?" "He's still at work. He'll join us later. Shall we begin?" Vanessa was getting married to Michael Stanford in a month. He was a top executive at a real estate company, and Carol was excited about the wedding. She saw it as a way to boost her family's status. "We were finalizing the guest list," Vanessa said, pushing her hair back gracefully. "You and Robert will be at the family table, of course. If you need help, just let me know," Jennifer said kindly. "Thanks, but everything's under control," Vanessa replied quickly. "The planner is handling it all. You just need to be there." They kept talking about the wedding, but no one asked Jennifer's opinion. She just listened quietly. On the walls, there were many family photos, but the one of Jennifer and Robert's wedding was small and off to the side. Robert arrived later, kissed Jennifer, and sat next to her. As dinner time came closer, the talk turned to how wealthy and well-known the Stanford family was. Then Carol suddenly looked at Jennifer and said, "Could you give a little extra money this month? We've got more wedding costs." Jennifer and Robert already sent money to Carol each month. Ever since Robert's father passed away, the money helped Carol keep up her expensive lifestyle. As they got ready to leave, Martha, the housekeeper, quietly approached Jennifer. "Mrs. Wilson, about tomorrow's wedding rehearsal, what time will the help arrive?" Jennifer was confused. "The help? I'm a guest." Martha looked down, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, madam," she said. Once in the car, Jennifer felt the mental fatigue of always being treated as an outsider. What kind of treatment would she receive at Vanessa's upcoming wedding? Based on past experiences, she had no expectations. Still, for Robert's sake, she needed to remain strong and dignified. On the day of Vanessa's wedding, a clear blue sky enveloped the luxury Hotel The Windsor in the Boston suburbs. Jennifer, nervous since morning, was calming herself with Robert's encouragement. "Today is Vanessa's special day. Let's celebrate with them," Jennifer told herself as she arranged her hair in front of the mirror. She had chosen a simple yet elegant navy blue dress, careful to avoid criticism from Robert's mother. "Carol, you look lovely," Robert said, placing his hands on her shoulders and smiling at her reflection in the mirror. "Let's go, Mother will make a fuss if we're late." When they arrived at the hotel, the parking lot was already filled with luxury cars. While Robert was parking the car, Jennifer took a deep breath to prepare herself. She knew her relationship with her in-laws was complicated, but she hoped for a peaceful day today. Passing through the luxurious lobby, they headed to the wedding reception. At the reception desk, decorated with flowers and white ribbons, several staff members were greeting guests with smiles. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson," Robert announced. The receptionist checked the list and took out 2 name tags. "Mr. Robert, Miss Jennifer, here are your name tags for today. Please wear them on the left side of your chest." When Jennifer took her name tag and casually glanced at it, her smile froze. The tag clearly read, "Jennifer Wilson, housekeeper." For a moment, she couldn't believe her eyes. "This is..." Jennifer's voice trembled. Robert was still checking his own name tag, which simply read, "Robert Wilson, son of Carol Wilson." Is something wrong? A cold voice came from behind. Turning around, they saw Carol, wearing a sophisticated light purple dress and a satisfied smile. Carol, there seems to be a mistake with this name tag, Jennifer said, trying to maintain her composure. Carol glanced at the tag and fainted in surprise. Oh, is there a problem? You're just a servant for this family, aren't you? Those words pierced Jennifer's heart like a sharp knife. Surrounding guests turned curious and contemptuous gazes toward her. Jennifer's cheeks flushed and tears welled in her eyes, but she desperately tried not to show them. What are you saying? Robert finally realized the situation and grabbed his mother's arm. I'll get this corrected immediately. No, Robert, Jennifer said quietly. Today is Vanessa's day. Let's not make a scene. She took the name tag and slipped it into her chest pocket, a silent act of resistance. Robert's face was red with anger, but he remained silent. When Jennifer squeezed his hand tightly, it was a wise decision. Carol said in a low voice, "Now, let's go to the ceremony hall. Michael's parents are waiting." She gracefully walked away, leaving Jennifer and Robert behind. Unbelievable. Robert gritted his teeth. I'll talk to Mother right away. Not now. Jennifer took his arm gently. Today isn't a day for conflict. Let's talk about it later. The ceremony was beautifully conducted. Vanessa, dressed in a white lace gown, was radiant. Michael's face showed pure love. However, Jennifer's heart was heavy. She felt Carol's cold gaze following her throughout the ceremony. After the ceremony, guests moved to the hotel's luxurious ballroom for the reception. Round tables were beautifully arranged with guest names displayed at each one. Jennifer and Robert were guided to the family table and took their seats. Are you okay? Robert quietly asked Jennifer. Yes, she smiled weakly. I'll try not to mind it. The table also seated Carol, Michael's parents, James and Eleanor Stanford, and a few other close relatives. The newlyweds sat at a separate table, and the congratulatory speeches began. After the speeches, waiters started bringing in the food. As luxurious appetizers were placed at each seat, Jennifer noticed something strange. Vanessa giggled and leaned in to whisper, "Meals are only for real family. People like you aren't included." That was the last straw. All the humiliation, petty harassment, and cold stares seemed to culminate in this moment. Jennifer slowly stood up and placed her napkin on the table. The room grew quiet, and many eyes turned to her. "If that's how you feel," her voice was small but resolute, "then I shouldn't be here." Across the table, Carol was about to say something, but Jennifer no longer had ears to listen. She slowly removed her wedding ring from her left hand and placed it on the table. The silver band made a soft, distinct sound as it touched the marble tabletop. "If I'm not family, then I'll leave." The room fell into stunned silence, as if cold water had been thrown over it. She could see Robert hurrying back from Vanessa's table, but Jennifer had already begun walking toward the exit. "Jennifer," Robert's voice called after her. "Wait." Carol's voice rang out, filled with a desperation never heard before. "It was a joke, just a joke. Come back." But Jennifer's feet didn't stop. She straightened her back, held her head high, and walked out of the venue with dignity. Just before leaving through the doors, she turned back for a brief moment. Carol's face had drained of color, turning pale. Vanessa was left speechless, her mouth open, and on the faces of Michael's parents, especially Eleanor Stanford, there was clear, unmistakable anger. Jennifer passed through the hotel lobby and stepped outside, taking a deep breath of fresh air. Her heart was wounded, but she also felt a strange sense of liberation. She had finally freed herself from the anger and humiliation she had endured for so long. Just as she was about to call a taxi, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, as Jennifer was walking toward her taxi, Eleanor gently grabbed her arm. "What just happened is unforgivable." Carol and Vanessa's behavior. "I'm at a loss for words." Jennifer smiled, holding back tears. "Thank you, Eleanor, but I'm going home. I can't stay any longer." "I understand," Eleanor nodded, "but know that you acted with strength and dignity." At those words, Jennifer genuinely smiled for the first time. She hailed a taxi and headed home. After Jennifer left, tension hung over the wedding venue. Robert returned from his sister's table. Noticing his wife's wedding ring was missing, his expression changed. "What happened?" Where's Jennifer? He asked urgently. Carol tried to hide her distress with a forced smile. Just a little misunderstanding. She'll be back soon. However, Michael's mother, Eleanor, intervened with a cold voice. It's not a misunderstanding. I saw everything that you and Vanessa did to Jennifer. Robert's eyes darkened with anger. He picked up his wife's name tag from the table and read it. At that moment, his expression changed from anger to fury. What have you done? His voice lost its usual calmness. Where is Jennifer's meal? Why was she the only one not served? Michael stood beside Vanessa, beginning to understand the situation. What's going on, Vanessa? Vanessa blushed and began making excuses. It was just a joke. Michael, she took it too seriously. A joke? Michael's voice was incredulous. Calling someone a housekeeper and not giving them food is a joke? Around the venue, guests began whispering among themselves. It was only a matter of time before rumors spread. Michael's father quietly stood up and looked at Carol with a stern expression. This is unacceptable behavior. His voice was low but full of authority. We are a family that values bonds and respect. We cannot be associated with a family that treats people so inhumanely. Eleanor stood beside her husband and nodded in agreement. Our blessing for your marriage is temporarily suspended. We cannot continue the ceremony under these circumstances. The color drained from Vanessa's face. But it's my special day, she protested. Michael took his fiancée's hand but said firmly, Vanessa, if this is your true nature, we need to seriously reconsider our marriage. Robert was no longer listening. He gripped the name tag tightly, saying only, I'm going to find Jennifer. He left the venue. Outside, hotel staff were calling a taxi for Jennifer. Robert ran to the parking lot, jumped into his car, gripped the steering wheel desperately, and hurried home, apologizing repeatedly in his mind. When Jennifer arrived home, she paused at the entrance. This house had been a symbol of her love with Robert, but now her heart was filled with doubt. She unlocked the door, entered the empty house, sat on the sofa, and quietly cried. 20 minutes later, she heard the front door open. Robert came in, out of breath. Jennifer, his voice, calling her name, was thick with deep sadness and concern. Jennifer looked up, and tears flowed again at the sight of her husband. Robert sat next to her and held her tightly. Mother and Vanessa's actions are unforgivable, he said quietly. You are the most important person in my life. I'm so sorry for their behavior. Jennifer felt small in her husband's arms. Why am I always an outsider? She whispered, even after 5 years together. You're not an outsider. Robert cupped her face in his hands. You are my family, my everything. Mother and Vanessa's values are not mine. They held each other for a long time. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, casting twilight shadows into the room. Finally, Jennifer quietly asked, What do we do now? Robert answered with a determined expression. First, I'm immediately cutting off financial support to Mother. I have no obligation to support her luxury lifestyle anymore. Jennifer looked at her husband in surprise. Really? But Carol, Mother should face the consequences of her actions, Robert said firmly. Besides, she still has sufficient assets. She just won't be able to maintain that mansion and social life. Jennifer nodded slowly. Her wounded heart still hurt, but her husband's determination gave her strength. What about our relationship with them? She asked cautiously. I think we should keep our distance for a while. Yesterday's humiliation and sadness still lingered in her heart, but she also felt a strange sense of liberation. I'm ready, Robert said, placing his hand on her shoulder. Jennifer turned around with a smile. Yes, let's go. As they were leaving the house, they took a letter from the mailbox. It was from Michael. Jennifer opened it in the car, and they read it together. I sincerely apologize for yesterday's events. I was shocked by the behavior of Vanessa's family. Our wedding is currently on hold. My parents have decided that we cannot continue the ceremony under these circumstances. I've told Vanessa she needs to seriously reconsider. Jennifer, I respect your dignified action. Safe travels. Michael Stanford *. They finished reading the letter in silence. Robert started the car and headed for the Maine coast. A week passed. Jennifer and Robert spent quiet time by the sea. healing their emotional wounds. As they were having a leisurely breakfast at their small cottage in Maine, Robert's smartphone rang again. Looking at the screen, he saw it was his mother calling. Robert hesitated for a moment, but decided not to answer, and ended the call. Jennifer asked, gazing at the calm sea outside the window. Yes? Robert took a sip of coffee. That's the 10th call since yesterday. I've received several messages from Vanessa, too. Jennifer showed him her smartphone. The screen displayed unread messages from Vanessa. Jennifer, please contact me. I'm truly sorry. They continued eating breakfast in silence. The seaside breeze entered the room through the window, swaying the lace curtains. They might need more time, Robert said quietly. Whether they're truly remorseful or just want to restore the situation. Jennifer took her husband's hand. I respect your decision, but we can't keep rejecting them forever. I know, Robert sighed deeply. It was just that, when he thought about that day. On the final day of their vacation, they were preparing to return home. When Robert came back from returning the keys to the cottage owner, he had a slightly puzzled expression. What's wrong? Jennifer asked. The owner said, there's an interesting article in the local newspaper. He opened the newspaper he was holding. The Stanford family has announced a charitable initiative. They're establishing a fund to support healthcare workers. Jennifer took the newspaper in surprise. The article stated that Michael Stanford's parents had announced the establishment of a fund to support healthcare workers who had worked dedicatedly during the pandemic. In an interview, Eleanor Stanford said, "We want to build a society that respects true heroes and appreciates their contributions." Is this about me? Jennifer whispered. Robert placed his hand on her shoulder. I can't be sure, but considering the timing. They quietly loaded their luggage into the car and headed home. When they arrived, there were several letters in the mailbox. Among them were Michael's official notice of postponing the wedding and a private apology letter from the Stanford family to Jennifer. 3 weeks after returning to their daily lives, Jennifer had resumed her duties at the hospital. Her colleagues noticed a subtle change in her. She had a more resolute attitude and increased confidence in herself. One weekday evening, as Jennifer finished her shift at the hospital and headed to the parking lot, she saw a familiar car parked there. Carol Wilson was waiting in front of the car. She didn't have her usual glamour, was dressed simply, and looked obviously tired. Jennifer, Carol's voice trembled. Could we talk for a moment? Jennifer stopped and looked at her mother-in-law. The formerly arrogant figure was gone. Carol now looked small and fragile. Go ahead, Jennifer quietly agreed. They entered a cafe near the hospital. Carol ordered coffee but barely touched it. My actions were unforgivable, Carol said with tears in her eyes. I was blinded by pride and prejudice. I didn't try to see who you are, how valuable you are. Jennifer listened silently, trying to discern whether there was truth in Carol's words. Have you heard from the Stanford family? Carol asked. Yes, from Michael and his parents. Carol smiled bitterly. They've completely cut us off, Michael told Vanessa. He said he might reconsider if she really changes. But what about Vanessa? She's thinking about her actions, Carol replied, looking tired. For the first time, she's starting to realize how much her behavior has hurt others. They sat in silence. Outside the cafe window, people were walking by, busy with their lives. I've decided to sell the mansion, Carol said suddenly. Without Robert's help, I can't afford that lifestyle anymore. I'm going to move into a small apartment. Jennifer was surprised. Carol had always cared about status and appearances. Now she was letting all that go. Carol, Jennifer said gently, I might be able to forgive you, but it will take time to rebuild trust. Carol nodded. I understand. I just want a chance, from both you and Robert. I truly want to change. That night, Jennifer told Robert about her talk with Carol. He listened carefully, then said, let's meet with her, but I'll make it clear, things won't go back to how they used to be. The next weekend, Jennifer and Robert visited Carol's new apartment. It was much smaller than her old mansion. Carol welcomed them warmly and had made lunch herself. You cooked this? Robert asked, surprised he'd never seen his mother cook. Yes, Carol said, a bit shy. I'm learning from YouTube. I'm not great yet, but I'm trying. At first, Their talk felt awkward, but slowly, it became more relaxed. Carol spoke honestly about how she used to value money and image too much. I used to judge people by how rich they were, she admitted. Now I see that was wrong. Jennifer could tell Carol was changing, it didn't feel fake. What about Vanessa? Robert asked. She's having a hard time, Carol said. Michael is giving her space, but she knows she needs to change too. Before they left, Carol gave Jennifer a small box. Open it, she said. Inside was a silver bracelet. It was engraved, "Family is bound by love, not blood." I still have a lot to learn, Carol said, but I want to truly accept you as my family, Jennifer. From that point on, things slowly got better. Robert started giving Carol some money again, but only enough for basic needs. Carol didn't complain. She tried hard to live simply. A month later, Vanessa came to see Jennifer for the first time. Her usual proud attitude was gone. "I'll regret what I did for the rest of my life," Vanessa said. "I finally see how shallow I was. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I just want to become a better person." Jennifer gave her a gentle smile. "People can change, Vanessa. You can. I can." As autumn arrived, the whole family agreed to go to counseling. The first session was uncomfortable, but it was a start. One evening, Jennifer and Robert sat on their porch, watching the sun go down. Leaves danced in the wind. "I never thought," Jennifer said, leaning on Robert's shoulder, "that such a painful day would lead to this." Robert held her close. "It happened because you were strong. Your courage made the difference." They sat in silence, watching the sunset. The future was unknown, but they had taken the first steps forward. A year later, on a Sunday, they had a small barbecue in their backyard. Jennifer was 6 months pregnant, her hand resting on her belly as she set the table. "Don't carry heavy things," Carol said, hurrying over to take the fruit platter. "Let me do it." Carol had changed a lot. She now lived simply and volunteered at Jennifer's hospital 2 days a week. For the first time, she was helping others. "Thank you, Carol," Jennifer said with a smile. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was built on mutual respect now. Vanessa and Michael had married 6 months earlier in a small, intimate ceremony. Vanessa was no longer proud or bossy, she was more humble and caring. "How's the baby?" Vanessa asked Jennifer kindly. "Very active. Loves kicking at night," Jennifer lied. Robert was by the grill, watching them talk. He smiled. Seeing his mom and sister getting along with Jennifer was something he never thought he'd see. "How about a toast to better family relationships?" Michael said, raising his glass. Everyone joined in. "To healthy family relationships." Jennifer's glass had sparkling cider. After the meal, Carol gave Jennifer a gift, a hand-knitted baby blanket. "I made it myself," she said shyly. "It's not perfect, but I made it with love." Jennifer was touched. She hugged Carol. "It's beautiful, thank you." As the sky darkened and stars appeared, they sat together talking and laughing. Jennifer had moved past the pain and found strength and self-worth. The whole family had grown from their struggles.